What is up, Hoof listeners? It is me, Anthony Romeo, here for week 10 of the Hoof podcast this season. And here we are. You'll see Eric is not here, obviously, with me doing the intro. Eric is busy with work things today, but I got my guy joining me, Akeem. You know, it's always good to just message the team and say, hey, who can come in? Anybody available to jump in with me? And Akeem, glad you could join. Always a good time. I know you and I are always on. I have good chemistry on the show and kind of on the same page. So glad you could join me. How you doing? How you feeling?
Hey, Rich, Hakeem Richens. If you don't know me by now, ladies and gentlemen, get to know me. Anthony, it's a pleasure to come on, man. Once I seen that you put the message out there, I had to look at some work because I still wasn't at work at the time. I was like, can I make it? Yes, I can make it on time. Anthony, I would be ecstatic to come and join the Hoof tonight. Shout out Eric who can't be here, but I'm happy to be here. How you doing?
Yeah, feeling good, man. What a game. I was actually at the game on Sunday, the
Mhm.
Miami game. Got a last minute ticket, literally like Sunday morning, made the decision that I was driving out for this ticket that a friend had. And it ended up being 7 rows from the field right by the tunnel where the players run out. So it was an awesome spot to be in. Not necessarily for view of the game because the action on the other end you can't really see, but coming at you, obviously you can. And just the experience of being that close to the field and being there for an awesome back and forth game with Miami, and we were on the end, so I had a good view of the setup of Bass's game winning kick and the perfect how it was perfectly centered and obviously plenty of distance. So an exciting fun game to be at, just with the crowd and everything in it. And in general, that game, it was irritating at times during the game. I'll say something I've said on the Hoof for weeks now is we've seen this Bills team win games and knock opponents out and bench the starters and everything, and we've seen this team lose games in pretty bad fashion, right? In the 2 games that we've lost already this year to the Ravens and Texans. But I kept saying what is really a statement of your team is when you're going toe to toe with a team and they're punching back and you're punching back and it goes back and forth, and then you got to find a way to come out with a win. And the Bills were able to do that against Miami, which is ultimately what matters most. Now they're 7-2. Man, what a game! What were your general thoughts on that one, based on probably not being at the game, I'm guessing, but
Mhm.
I didn't get a chance to rewatch it yet. So any thoughts or something I might have missed there?
Well, yeah, man. Well, first of all, coming into the game against the Dolphins, I had my concerns. I
Yeah,
I, I thought about it as a classic trap game for the Bills. Why did I think about it as such? Their record is something that I was ignoring. We have to ignore the record. It's a divisional rival, and it's not the normal 2-5 team. This is one of the more talented 2-5 teams I've seen in having a tool and having the receivers on the outside. So
exactly.
because of that, I definitely had my concerns. And then on top of that, Tua was coming back from injury. And what happens, especially a serious injury like Tua, what's going to happen when he's coming back from injury? Coaches, the right thing to do is protect your quarterback. And the way you protect your quarterback is by running the football and keeping him out of harm's way. Well, when you run the football and you're facing a team like the Buffalo Bills, who's susceptible to the run game, that could be an advantageous situation for the Miami Dolphins. And they was able to have a lot of success on offense this past Sunday. Luckily, our offense was matching their success and
Yes.
firing in all cylinders, and we was able to have the ball last to complete that victory.
Yeah, that was a huge part of the game, and I know it, again, I haven't watched it back on TV, but being at the game and the way the start of that game, first of all, the lowering the head penalty, to give the Dolphins their first 3 points, I was livid. I was literally screaming, like, "What are you seeing, refs?" You could clearly see that the offensive player lowers his head and rams it into the defensive player. Like, if that's a penalty, then guys should do that on every play. Like, why not just lower your head and ram it into the guy who's defending you? Because that's a penalty on them, apparently. And, it didn't end there when the touchdown, which, the next drive, or maybe it was a couple later, when Josh Allen runs in the touchdown, that was right at me, by the way. Literally where he was directly in front of me when he ran into the end zone. And that was called back on a bullshit holding call, right?
Right.
After another BS holding call just the play before. I couldn't see the first one, so I didn't know that one was bad. The second one, I was like, where was the holding? There was nobody even like around like to get held, and the flag was late, and it was just so frustrating. The whole crowd was screaming at the refs, basically like, where are your glasses? And, how could you not see that? What call are you making? I'm surprised that the New York office didn't call to say like, hey, there's something going on there. That wasn't a penalty for that or this. But
Right.
apparently they only do that in certain situations. So even the challenge on the fourth down, what was it, like the fourth quarter then?
Mm-hmm.
When Tua went for it on the short play, he dove.
Mm-hmm.
His shin was down.
Down.
Literally, we made a whole stink about this last week in the NFL, a
Mm-hmm.
different team, not the Bills, but they said, oh, yeah, if your shin is down, that's down, you're in bounds. But apparently, if your shin is down and the ball isn't past the first down marker yet, that doesn't count. So I
Yeah.
was livid about that one, too. I'm like, you literally just established this last week over controversy, and now you're saying something different. So I was upset about that one, too, because that would have been the game. If they missed that, I was like, oh, it's over now. But, either way, it was an entertaining game, back and forth. Miami, definitely had, like you said, I agree with you, by the way, that Miami team that we saw was not the Miami team of the last few weeks without Tua and, coming back from trying to deal with backup quarterbacks and injuries and everything. They had both running backs, they had both wide receivers, they had their starting quarterback, and that dynamic offense, it can come alive with all of those guys, right? That's why they're a threat. And they gave Buffalo their best shot because they knew their season was on the line. But in the end, they're still second fiddle to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And coming out with the win again was the biggest thing for the Buffalo Bills. And I love that they were able to go toe to toe and just fight and grind and still come out with the W, because we haven't seen that from this team until this game now. So, yeah, any other thoughts, comments on that game before we move on to week 10 and the Colts?
And I've seen 13 seconds with the Buffalo Bills with Harrison Buckner kicking that 49-yard field goal to overtime. I seen the Denver Broncos last season kick a game-winning field goal against the Bills after we stupidly call a timeout. I seen I forget the Philadelphia Phillies kicker and gusting winds and at that stadium,
right,
kicker drain a 59-yard field goal.
That was terrible.
It was good to see us on the winning side.
It's been a while, right?
of a game-winning field goal kick, especially 61 yards.
Yeah.
So I was glad to
record.
be. I was glad to be on the opposite side of the spectrum there. Huge shout out to Tyler Bass, who's been under scrutiny ever since he missed the 44-yard field goal against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional game.
Yeah, I mean, emotional. He's gotten his props this week. He got AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Rightfully so, right? I mean, he misses the extra point early, and everybody in the stadium's like, oh my gosh, here we go again with this nonsense. But he totally redeems himself from everything, really, of the nonsense of the last, since the season ended last year with that missed playoff kick. And now, hopefully this brings the confidence back in him. The number one thing with Bass that I kept saying is, we know he has the leg. We know he has the power. He can kick it from 70. The Bills know that. And so when they were setting up at the end of the game, being in the crowd, I was like, are they going to kick it or punt it? I thought they were going to punt it. Out comes Bass, and I'm like, oh, they're going to show some faith in him right now to be able to do this. And luckily, it turned out the way it did. And hopefully this builds back the Bass that we all know and love, that he's not going to get rattled if he misses a short one or whatever, and he's still available to make the big kick in the big moment. And hopefully the Bills are ahead of far enough that they won't need that. But, come playoff time, and when you're playing good teams, it does. Those things matter. So, yeah, I agree. Bass gets all the flowers this week, deservedly so. And, it was awesome to see that moment of the team bonding, and then the moment in the locker room after where Sean McDermott gave him the game ball. That was, incredible. So
Absolutely.
another thing to gain the momentum forward, something we were all worried about with Tyler Bass this whole season. And now that kind of shows, boom, we can stamp it that we know he's still capable and can do this. And it's not one of those, he has the yips and we're going to have to move on from him kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, good to see that redemption story. So moving on now, it's week 10. The Bills are on the road again versus the Colts, a team that has been under scrutiny as well for some of their decisions, mainly the quarterback position. Obviously, Anthony Richardson drafted there, played a few games this season, but when he was injured, I kept saying too, with Flacco out there, the team looks better. The wide receivers are getting more production. In my fantasy team, I'm like, hey, I picked up Josh Downs. I picked up a few of their guys and saw the increase in their productivity in a couple of wins, right? And then Richardson comes back and the team is a little disappointing. And surprisingly, they make the decision. I was shocked because, Flacco being as old as he is, you're not getting much out of him. And Anthony Richardson being your young drafted guy needs the reps. But they do make the difficult decision to bench Richardson in favor of Flacco. And, even last week that didn't turn into a W for them, but and now they have to face Buffalo. So it's tough going for this team. But do you think that was the right decision? I mean, clearly it's a win now decision, but where do you stand on the decision to switch to Flacco from the sort of rookie? I mean, he played a couple games last year, but young quarterback in Richardson.
In terms of the move the Indianapolis Colts made, if we're thinking about it in terms of in season and the success of this season, Joe Flacco gives the Indianapolis Colts, in my opinion, the best opportunity to win. My follow-up question is, what are the Indianapolis Colts going to be winning? What are they going to be winning? Are we talking about an AFC South title? Are we talking about a wild card? Regardless if they get to the playoffs or not, I'm not sure how far they will go in the playoffs. But you play the game to win the game. Joe Flacco gives them the best opportunity to win because he's that seasoned vet. Anthony Richardson is not seeing the whole field right now. He's still a young player. He's still getting hip to the speed and the nuances of the game. And sometimes you need to sit down and see the game from a different lens before you come back in. And that's what happened to some vets. That's what happened even to Sam Darnold. He had to see the game from a different lens before he came and has his success. Geno Smith had to see the game from the sidelines from a different lens before he came in and had ultimately had his success. So I'm not saying it will take that long for Anthony Richardson, but sometimes you need a reboot. You need a restart. So I'm not mad. It's not over for Anthony Richardson. This is a learning curve he has to go through.
Yeah, agreed that, it's a bold move, but it does feel like the win now move. Interesting perspective from you on, let him sit and learn that way for a year. He didn't get that even last year. He was the starter, right? It was like, go out there and play and see what you can do. And I feel like the NFL is moving more toward, if you have a quarterback like that, you draft him high, throw him out there and let him learn the hard way, right? But that we've seen even with Pat Mahomes, right? He got to sit a year and learn before he actually went on the field to play. So there are different strategies to take. And obviously, I don't think they're giving up on Anthony Richardson. There was some buzz that maybe they would trade him or something. And that just seemed crazy to me. But let me ask you this then. Would you be more afraid of, or are you more afraid of Flacco playing in this game and being the starting quarterback and what he can do with the weapons that they have, or Anthony Richardson, who, let's face it, has the better run ability for sure, and the better, big play, I'd say, ability, right, to throw the ball down the field than Flacco. Flacco's more of the steady veteran. So two very different quarterbacks. And against this Bills defense, thinking about our team, which quarterback do you think is the better matchup? And are you happy that Flacco's starting versus Richardson?
Well, I would say this, and it's going to be a little long-winded, but I'm going to get there, right?
Floor
So
is yours.
In terms of the development of a quarterback, right? I think there are a couple of ways that you can go about it. You can go about it the Kansas City Chiefs way, where they sat Patrick Mahomes for most of the first year, and then they come back the next year and then make him the starter. I think that helped him where he could be on the bench and see the field, right? And then you have Josh Allen, who in the beginning probably was the idea of sitting, but the injury and Nathan Peterman and that happening, he got thrusted into that starting lineup. So what did the Buffalo Bills do? They wanted to pair him with as much veterans as they can. Veterans, Cole Beasley, John Brown, veterans on the offensive line to speed up his process as a rookie. Now, Anthony Richardson, he has weapons. He has a running game. He has wide receivers, and he has an offensive line, and he's still struggling,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that tells me that, okay, you need to sit here next to the coach, get a reboot, see it from a different lens. So I don't think it's over for Anthony Richardson, but that's just another way of growth. And the Green Bay Packers have their own way of growing franchise quarterbacks as well, sitting for a plethora of years. But getting to the situation in terms of who I'd rather see, I would want to see Anthony Richardson. Joe Flacco gives the Indianapolis Colts a better chance to win, and Joe Flacco adds stability to the Indianapolis Colts offense. So what does the Buffalo Bills have to do? They have to do stuff that they struggle to do, and that's stop the run. The Buffalo Bills have to stop Jonathan Taylor even more now because Joe Flacco's at the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
If we can stop the run and force them to pass, Joe Flacco's a dinosaur back there. We can get to him. He's not like Anthony Richardson where he's going to be elusive in the pocket. We can get to Joe Flacco once he's back there and he's in obvious pass situations. But the Buffalo Bills have to get the Indianapolis Colts out their structure of running the football. We have to get them out of their playbook and their structure in order to have success. And the Buffalo Bills struggled to do that last week against Tua. That's why he was 25 for 28. He looked good last week. That's because he was able to keep his structure and run the ball. We have to get Joe Flacco out of that structure this week.
Yeah, you went into my next question or the next part that I was going to talk about too, which is Jonathan Taylor, right? That he's the running back. He's, I would say, their best offensive weapon. Their wide receivers are pretty good too. I actually like a lot of their wide receiver core. I mentioned Downs. They've got Pierce, who's a fast guy. They've got some weapons there. You can't overlook their ability on offense, I'd say. And this was a team even at the beginning of the year that I said that. Do I expect them to win a lot of games? Not necessarily, but they do have the weapons. And if they all start clicking, then you could be in trouble against a team like this. And we've seen that from them in their schedule, in their matchup so far this season. To your point about, I agree with most of what you said about the quarterbacks for sure. And Flacco certainly has his limitations. And part of that is he's in the pocket. He's a statue. So he's going to be vulnerable to sacks when they're in passing situations. But to complement that, obviously, they're going to run the ball a lot. And you have to be able to stop the run. And as part of that, the Bills have added to their defensive line this week, right? With the trade deadline, I know we all wanted them to make a bigger move. I was staring at those Tennessee defensive linemen all day, waiting for a name to come across because I thought for sure they were going to make a move there. But it ends up being two familiar faces in Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson, both dropped by their respective teams, and they come back to Buffalo to be the best versions of themselves again. Jordan Phillips, what a rah-rah guy, man. Every game I went to that he was on this team, he was the voice on the sideline, roaring up the crowd, pumping them up, sometimes on the field too, after the game, coming to high-five the fans both on the road and at home. So good to see him back just from that perspective. I know his play has been not so great, and that's why he was dropped. Same with Quentin Jefferson, right? These aren't guys who were, lighting it up if they were dropped by their teams. But again, both have experience in the system. Both know this McDermott defense. Both could step in right now and do a job. Do you think that either has an impact in this Colts game? I mean, we've seen from Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones this season, underwhelming performance, basically, both in the pass rush and in the run game, I'd say. So do you think that bringing in these two guys actually affects things will have an impact of any kind, especially in stopping the run, because that's what we just both said we're most worried about. And their best player on offense is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that when you have, first of all, the Buffalo Bills, they had a lot of they didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of cap
Yes.
space. They was restricted. So
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are like, "Hey, we got Jordan Phillips again.
Yeah.
We
Not yet.
got Quentin Richardson." But I like to look at it in as the glass half full. We got these guys. We didn't have spend any capital.
Right.
The Brandon Bean, he added pieces without losing any pieces. And it may not be the pieces of impact that we like, but nevertheless, he's trying to improve the team. Will it actually work? We'll see. I think Jordan Phillips, I think he brings that energy, that natural juice on the sideline. I even see
Mm-hmm.
we have a roster spot open. I'm waiting
Right.
for Shaq Lawson to come here so they can join back up and,
Yeah.
and do the reunion all over again, right? But at this point in Jordan Phillips' career, I'm not sure how much he provides, especially from interior as a run defense standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that he's fine. He's back in the Buffalo system, and this is the best system for him. And we
Yes.
could see the best version of Jordan Phillips. And same with Quentin Jefferson. I actually like the acquisition of Quentin Jefferson a little bit more than Jordan Phillips because he does, in my opinion, still provide a pass rush from the inside. And I think we're going to thrust him right into the rotation immediately, especially with the injury to Dewan Smoot. So I
Yes.
think these guys are going to get their chance in the rotation to see how productive they can be.
Yeah, I agree with you on a bunch there as well. The Jefferson point was one that I was going to make about Smoot going on the IR, unfortunately, with the wrist injury. That opens that spot in the rotation, and we know the Bills rotate their defensive linemen like crazy, right? You got to get fresh guys out there, fresh bodies out there, and you know, adding him to the mix now will give him an opportunity to have impact right away. Phillips, will he be out there for a few plays? Maybe, because again, they like to rotate, but I'm not expecting him to have that impact and feel in the first game that he's here, especially. But it will be nice to have him back on the team. And you also mentioned that I was going to bring up they dropped Zion Logue, right? And that is the guy we picked up off of the Atlanta practice squad, brought
Mhm.
him in basically out of depth need, right? We needed more bodies. Didn't quite work out the way we hoped. We're able to let him go, and now there is an open roster spot. Will that mean somebody from the practice squad getting called up to the active roster now, or are they looking to sign a guy who's out there? Is yet to be seen. They did not make a complimentary move to that as far as tonight yet. So I have a feeling, obviously, they will before game day, which to me tells me they're not just signing some street free agent. This is going to be somebody on the practice squad that's
Mhm.
coming up, right? So,
Right.
depending on whether that's one of the wide receivers to fill the injury roles that we've had at wide receiver, or maybe it's a defensive lineman again, is to be determined. So I expect that spot will be in-house fill, and then they might add maybe even add Zion Logue back to the practice squad if he's out there. So yeah, let's see how that works out. So let's finish talking about this Colts offense. And one of the things that also happened for them this week is their offensive line got a little dinged up. Right, their center gets put on IR, and that really makes their interior weaker, which complements the point we were talking about with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones and the rest of these D linemen, especially on the interior, going to have to attack, right? And you got to be able to make some penetration and make them struggle with the absence of their starter in the middle. And hopefully we'll see how the communication goes, right? The center is snapping the ball to the quarterback every play. So we'll see how that is affected from the Colts and if the Bills can capitalize on any mistakes there. But as we've already said, Flacco, not very, a guy who moves around a lot in the pocket. And if you can get pressure up the middle, that's definitely going to cause some fits, both to Flacco and in the run game to Jonathan Taylor, right? If you have bodies in there, sure, Taylor's a good enough running back that he could make contact or make a guy miss and get yardage. But if that's happening 2 yards into the backfield, you're shortening the distance that he can get, right? So all of that plays in the
Absolutely.
Bills' favor in my mind. Do you see what else about this offensive line? Um, do you see as a place where the Bills could capitalize, or do you think that center position is really where they're going to aim, kind of go to the interior and maybe not let Jonathan Taylor break it to the outside?
Yeah, I think, the interior is definitely a weakness that the Buffalo Bills should exploit, especially, we've been talking about our struggles from the interior. So we have
Yes.
a backup offensive lineman. We can really assess what the hell is going on with our defensive interior, because they should be able to exploit and take advantage. Daquan Jones should be able to get his name called a couple times on Sunday, along with Ed Oliver. It's been a couple of weeks
Mhm.
since we've mentioned him. So, in my personal opinion, we definitely should attack that interior and exploit all weaknesses along that offensive front. And I think the interior, I think you said it beautifully, is something that we can definitely exploit.
Yeah, and in terms of their wide receivers, I mentioned Downs and Pierce, but I left out really their number one guy, Michael Pittman Jr., right?
He didn't practice today. Is he playing
Uh,
this week?
he's listed as questionable.
Okay.
As far as I know, he's expected to play the game. I haven't heard otherwise, but he is questionable, so we don't know. It's Thursday, right? So it's definitely a big thing for being on the injury report this late, right? Even as questionable. So we'll see if he plays. I think even if he does, I trust our cornerbacks to be shut down, right? If anything, the Bills are getting healthy this game on defense, right? We're getting our starting cornerback back. We're getting, the defense back. So I think the strength will persevere when it comes to the cornerbacks, right? Rasul Douglas had a great game last week, and I expect him to stay on that track. Christian Benford, by far one of our most valuable players on defense, and really turning into a stud at the position in the NFL, coming back is going to be huge. So I think they can keep those wide receivers under wraps, right? And sure, they're going to make a catch and a play here and there because, like I said, those are talented guys for different reasons. They're very complementary, right? I think Downs is the hands guy. Pittman's a big play guy, definitely a number one wide receiver, and Pierce with the
Pierce.
speed. You gotta keep on top of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the Bills will be able to do that. It's really the run game that we're most afraid of, and
Mm-hmm.
that weakness on the interior that the Bills have got to exploit in order to limit that. We have nightmares about Jonathan Taylor based on the last experience we had with him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Running
Mm-hmm.
all over the field, getting touchdowns. I mean, just like a
Mm-hmm.
sieve through the Bills defense.
Right.
And I think we need to get him back for that one, right? And hopefully now with the issues on the offensive line and the beefed up Bills defensive line, and the guys who have been there need to show up and have impact. So those are the keys for me for the Colts offense. And now we can switch it over to the other side, the Bills offense versus this Colts defense. To me, this is where the Bills really have an edge, right? To me, this Colts defense has been good at times. I don't think they've been great at all this season. In some ways, they've overperformed, I think, in some games, but there's not a lot to be that strikes fear into an offense, I guess. They have good pass rushers, right? They've got two good pass rushers, and that's going to give any offensive line fits. But I would say one of the strengths and consistencies of this Bills offense, especially when they're playing well, is the offensive line. They've been playing very well this season, getting better, it seems, as the season goes along. Now your tackles you're gonna need to stay on their toes against these pass rushers, but I think the Bills are going to be able to both balance. You have to play a balanced attack, right? Because they have a good pass rush. I don't expect the Bills are going to pass the ball 30, 40 times, right? I think it's going to be that run pass balance. Keep them questioning. Don't do the damn, I hate it when the Bills do this. Run, pass, right? Run. Oh, 3rd and 3. Oh, now we got to pass. Don't be predictable. You got to change it up. And I think we'll be able to get yardage consistently, get first downs consistently, make a big play when it's available, and just control the ball on offense and have our way with this defense. Because Josh Allen and the receivers are, all the receivers I think are expected to play. Obviously, Cooper having that injury, and being out for the last game. I think he'll play this week. That could have an impact. You've got Shakir, who's healthy and doing better now. Yeah, I just think our offense is going to stay balanced and consistent and just kind of knock them into submission. It's not going to be a punch for a punch and a big play for a big play. It's going to be, look, we're the better team and we're going to take control and we're going to put our stamp on this one and hopefully limit the big plays of their pass rush, which I think is their, number one part. Do you comments on overall the defense of Indy versus the Bills offense? I said a lot there, but
Yeah, yeah,
just,
but I think you did a tremendous job breaking it down, right? The Indianapolis Colts, they have a decent pass rush, but they don't do anything defensively that stands out, right? It's not like, oh gosh, they got this fierce pass defense. Oh my gosh, they got this fierce rushing defense. They're not the worst, but they're not the best, and they can definitely be taken advantage of, right? So being that you spoke about a little bit, it's a little murky in my opinion in terms of who is going to be the starting receivers on Sunday for the Bills. Keon Coleman has a wrist thing going on. Amari Cooper has a wrist thing going on. Curtis Samuel, he's still been trying to get his foot in for the entire season. He has a pec issue. So there are guys, even if they play, we're uncertain on how healthy they can be, especially you need your hands as a receiver. You need your hands to catch the ball. You need your hands to block. You're going to be in the trenches in terms of locking with cornerbacks and defensive backs. So you're going to need those hands. So it's going to be interesting who plays and how effective they can be. And because of that, I went to go look at some stats and see where the Buffalo Bills can find holes, and that is in the running game. Now, I know we don't want to be predictable run, pass, but the Indianapolis Colts are 31st in the NFL in stopping the run. They give up 150 rushing yards per game. In my opinion, the Buffalo Bills have three of the more underrated, three of a trio of good backs that you can exploit in the run and the passing game. So I want to get a heavy dose of James Cook. I want to mix in some Ray Davis. I want to mix in some Tyron Johnson. And then once I mix that in and have some success there, I want to feed off that and go play action. We have our Dalton Kincaid still. We have Dawson Knox still. We have our old reliable or our new reliable, our Cole Beasley 2.0 in Khalil Shakir. So in my opinion, I would love for the Buffalo Bills, despite having those injuries, to take advantage of some weaknesses from the Colts, and that's in the run game. And I think James Cook and the Buffalo Bills offensive line can do that. And if they do that, I think they'll open up lanes in the passing attack as well.
Yeah, you make a good point with the run game, right? All three of those guys are contributing. All three of them. I freaking love when Ray Davis is on the field. He just is a playmaker, right? I mean, he's impact is felt on the team. And James Cook has been a star on this team for the last 2 years now. So, I mean, it's very clear the impact. Ty Johnson, impressive last year, doing the same things this year. He's out there. He makes good catches. He makes big plays when they hand him the ball. You got to love that. You have three different guys you can trust, which does take the burden a little bit off of Josh Allen, who we've seen kind of only run when it's either obviously given to him or in situations in games where it's, what has he been maybe called on once a game to do a designated quarterback run rather than a improvised one. So love that we have that run balance. And again, that opens things up for the pass game. When I look at this Colts defense, the guys on this defense, if you will, I talked about their D-line, Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, those guys are capable of making big plays, right? And, the nickel position, A1 or A2 to Taron Johnson, right, is Kenny Moore, right? So that's, I think that, that could play a factor. If I was the Bills, what I would do is get some creative alignments out there. Shakir, he's best in the slot. Obviously, that's where we like him. But line him up outside and put him up against the cornerback so that you can make a play, given that, we're not sure on how much Cooper and Coleman, even if they do play, how many snaps they're going to get or how close they are to 100%. So I would get creative there. You've got the two running backs all three really who can pass catch, so go in the run alignment, the two tight end sets, the crazy, like I said, putting Shakir in an X position. You got to get creative in order to, keep that balance, like I said earlier. So I think that's also part of it. Just get creative, see what works, and play your game. Don't try to uh, uh, overcomplicate your opponent here, right?
Exactly.
The Colts, like I said, they have an offense. They're capable of making big plays, but they're limited. They have so many limitations.
Mhm.
On the other hand, our offense, I feel, does not have those limitations. Our run game is very good and can do anything pretty much. Our pass game is very good and can do anything. So, and you have Josh Allen, the X factor, the ultimate X factor. So I really like the Bills to come, on the road to make an impact and show this team that has been struggling against some better opponents, really who they are, right? And say, okay, you're a good team, all right, props, respect,
Mhm.
but you're not good enough to hang with us, and that's
Mhm.
where I'm at with this. So that
I like
brings
it.
us to then ultimately score predictions, final comments, anything else you got for me? I think this one is going to be heavily favored as the Bills, as you can tell from my breakdown already. I'm going 31-13 Buffalo. I think it's a steady and consistent pace from the Buffalo Bills.
I like it. I like it. I'm going to go 34-17. We'll
Mm.
double up the Indianapolis Colts. I think, the home crowd, the Buffalo Bills sometimes start off slow and then make
Oh
adjustments
yeah.
later. They would be in it in the beginning of the game, but as the game wears on, the Buffalo Bills would take control and seize that opportunity and show that they are indeed the better team. 34-17, Buffalo over Indianapolis.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Jonathan Taylor, right? You got to have him. Hopefully, that offensive line shows some weakness early in the game, where if you're able to stop them a few times and then you score, you put them in a must pass position already. And that is just going to play in the Bills' favor 100%, right? We know the keys to the game for the Colts is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball down their throats, and maybe throwing a pass every once in a while when we're stacked in the box against it. Although the Bills don't ever do that, so we'll see what the approach is versus this Jonathan Taylor led Colts team. So and he's been inconsistent. That's another thing we didn't say. Jonathan Taylor's production this season. He did deal with injury early, but he's been pretty inconsistent but productive, right? He's been consistently productive but inconsistent in terms of being the guy, the star, the stud, the guy to take over the game and win it for you. So I think I like this matchup for the Buffalo Bills. It does have trap game written all over it, meaning it's a clearly inferior team. You're going into their house. The Bills are the clear favorites, although the betting line is not where I thought it would be either. So we'll see with that. And with that, we should go into our our picks of the week. Eric and I, always go through every week and make our picks against the spread and who we think is going to win outright. And this week we start with a great Thursday night game that's getting underway any minute now, and that is the Baltimore Ravens hosting their division rival, the Cincinnati Bengals. So who do you got in this game tonight, and how do you think it's going to go? What do you think's?
And from a Buffalo Bills perspective, it's like you can go either way, right? I'm going to go Baltimore Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. That's a hell of a combination. They got Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers is playing good ball, and the divisional opponent. They're the home team. T. Higgins is out for Cincinnati. They're battling
Yeah,
some things
tough.
in their own right. And I just think the Baltimore is a better team. And then the bias side of me is I don't want Cincinnati in the playoffs, right? Because if Cincinnati's in the playoffs, the Buffalo Bills will have to play pretty damn good football to stay at the number 2 seed. But if they slip and go to a 3 seed, then Cincinnati Bengals could be a 6, and you're facing Cincinnati Bengals for first round of playoffs. I'd rather go through the easiest path possible. So I'm for this game for my personal reasons and because I think Baltimore's a better team. I got the Ravens.
Well, I agree with you on a lot. I do think the Ravens are the better team, but this being a division rivalry game, it's a tough matchup for them, and the Bengals always play them tough. It stinks that the Bengals are without T. Higgins yet again. I think he's an X factor for them in a lot of ways, but that the quarterback has been able to produce even without, Joe Burrow has been doing well even without him. What did he have? 5 touchdown passes last week. So incredible performance from Joe Burrow. I think he's going to put it on Baltimore today. I'm picking Cincinnati to win. I think they get the upset and they start that trudge. I totally agree with you that I don't want to play Cincinnati in the playoffs. But, when you look at a team that we just previewed like the Colts, I mean, the Bengals are way better than the Colts. So I think, ultimately it's going to work out that way. And yeah, one of those teams is going to be the wild card. And it's likely in my mind to be the Bengals. So I do think they get the upset win tonight. At the start of the game, the line was Cincy plus 6.5, and I was definitely all over that, saying, okay, give me the points there, because always in a division rivalry game, a Thursday night game, these games tend to be close. I think, the Bengals with the points is the best bet there. I'm picking the upset with the Bengals to win, but we'll see. I agree, though, that the Ravens are the better team. They've blown it at home already this year, right? So we'll see.
Right.
All right, so that brings us to I have to laugh. The matchup of the week in Germany. What a great game we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. The New York Giants against the Carolina Panthers. Both teams 2-7. The line here is the Giants are favored by 6.5. So what do you think about this game in Germany? I can't help but laugh. The two of the worst teams in the NFL right now representing internationally. So
man, it's that game is truly a toss up. I'm gonna go ahead and bet the underdog. I'm gonna go Carolina Panthers. They got the win last week. They have some momentum and some confidence to build off that. Bryce Young got the win. He got confidence to build off of. And I'm just not sure what's going on with the Giants. Daniel Jones is I think he's a better quarterback than Bryce Young, but I don't know by how much. It's not a home game for either team. It's a game in Germany, so it's half and half, or whoever fans bring the most fans, whatever fan base bring the most fans. I like Carolina in this one. I like just because.
I'm always fascinated with these international games. You see every team's jersey, and it's not like cheering for one side or the other. They just cheer for good plays. It's kind of exciting in that way to watch. And for me, this game, the 6.5 points is a crazy line. Both of these teams suck, right? I'll definitely take Carolina with the points. I think the Giants
will win.
Edge them out, just close, like maybe by a field goal or a point or two, one of those 23-24 games or something. So give me the Giants to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if Carolina wins. Look at Carolina signs Chuba Hubbard to an extension this week. They're getting Jonathan Brooks, their rookie that they drafted to play this week. So, I think the run game could run all over the Giants in this one. But I do think they find a way to win just because that Carolina team is pretty bad itself. So, and like you said, Daniel Jones, definitely the better of the quarterbacks in my mind, at least at this point. All right. So moving on to the next game, we have the New England Patriots at the Chicago Bears. The Patriots are 6-point underdogs. So this game, man, I'm telling you, I'm picking the Patriots outright. I think the Patriots win the game. I love them with the +6. They have been playing pretty well over the last couple weeks. And, their quarterback, Drake May, has shown some life and given that team some energy, even though they have been losing games. That's what you want to see. It's almost a perfect scenario for them. You're still losing games, but your quarterback's making progress. And the Bears have underperformed week after week. Caleb Williams just not finding the chemistry yet. I think he'll grow into it, but I think the Patriots come up with an upset here. What do you think?
And I was thinking that, and I want to go to Patriots, but Chicago being at home, I think having that 12th man. I don't know how strong their 12th man is, but having that 12th man, I think is beneficial in this game against the New England Patriots. They had the issue with Tyreek Stevenson a couple of weeks ago going off the field, and they had another viral moment with DJ Moore. Walking off the field mid play. So they have a lot of shit going on in Chicago but I think they will rectify that for at least this week against the New England Patriots. They just don't have enough talent. The Chicago Bears, in my opinion, have a lot of talent offensively to score some points and get this job done. So I'm gonna go with the Bears.
And we already talked about the Bills game. That's the next one up on the slate. The line has moved a little bit. The Bills are only -4. I am all over this one. This is one of my top bets of the week. And obviously both of us are in favor of that one. So we don't have to discuss that one again, but I think that line is crazy. Jump all over that one. -4. I mean, they're expecting the Bills to win by a field goal. I think that would be a very disappointing performance by the Bills if that ends up happening. So I love that line. That brings us to the next matchup, still at 1 p.m. here. The Broncos are +7.5 against the Chiefs. And I know it's the Chiefs. They're 8-0. I fully expect the Chiefs to beat the Broncos, but they have not been blowing teams out by 10 or more points. So the 7.5 is just enough for me to say, should I take the Broncos? I think I will, because I expect them to lose by a touchdown, and the line is 7.5. So the Chiefs will win the game just because they do. And this is part of my season-long narrative of the Chiefs just walking through the regular season, being crowned everything, and then coming to the postseason and losing their first postseason game. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs win. Where are you at with that one? Can't hear you.
I said I think the Chiefs win. You can hear me now?
Yep.
I think the Chiefs win, but I'm in agreement with you there with the spread. I think Denver covers that 7.5. I think it's going to be a closer game. It's been a close game the entire season for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Denver Broncos. They're 5-4. Bo Nix is playing some good ball for a rookie. They have a pretty good defense, so I think they have all the capabilities to making it a ball game, which ultimately I think Kansas City will win, but they should cover that 7.5.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And the next game, here's another one that I really like. I'm going to do my pick six, which, by the way, my pick six has been on fire lately. 4 weeks in a row, 5-1 with my pick six. That's incredible right there. I would literally be shadow banned from Vegas. They would not let me in with those kind of numbers. So let's see here. Now we got the Falcons at the Saints. The Falcons are only -3.5. The Saints clearly signaled they know where their season is at. They decide to trade away one of their best defensive players in Lattimore, the cornerback. Derek Carr is back, but last week didn't put up a phenomenal performance. They still have weapons there, but I think the Falcons run away with this one. So I'm all over this one. Falcons -3.5, obviously them to get the win. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I think the New Orleans Saints, they're in a transition now. Dennis Allen got fired. Chris Olave, their best receiver, is mulling what to do with his future. Rashid Shaheed is out for the season. You got Michael Thomas on social media blasting Derek Carr. Nothing is healthy right now for the New Orleans Saints. Kirk Cousins have the Falcons found some stability with Kirk Cousins, and they're eyeing the playoffs. I like the Falcons in this game. I agree with you.
Falcons are my NFC Championship pick from the preseason, and Kirk Cousins is a top 10 QB. I've had that argument so many times with people. This guy is legit. He is a top 10 QB without a doubt. So yeah, Falcons, they're all over it. The next matchup, still at 1 p.m. here, we have a good one. The 49ers at the Bucks, but the line is -6.5 for the 49ers, and the Bucks obviously without their offensive weapons. This one certainly, I think, could end up being close. Christian McCaffrey expected to come back. We don't know how many touches he's going to get in this one, but where are you at with this matchup?
Man, this matchup I had to think about this a little bit because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are missing their weapons. I think Baker Mayfield, when he's not throwing the interceptions, he's playing solid ball. They played solid against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. They was in it until the very end. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bucks on this one. I'm going to go ahead because I think you're going to go opposite here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bucks on the upset.
Yeah, I think the return of Christian McCaffrey is the edge for me to pick the The 49ers. So you're picking them to win outright, the
I'm
Bucks?
going.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Yeah,
picking
I
the
love
Tampa
it.
Bay. I'm picking
I
the Tampa
love
Bay
the
Bucks to win the
upset
game.
pick,
Yeah,
man. Let me
yeah.
tell you, I've been searching for the upsets because in
Mhm.
my eliminator league, I'm still alive and I'm like, please, like
Yeah.
some of the teams I don't pick, that would be great. But sure enough here, so yeah, I mean, I think the 49ers with the return of Christian McCaffrey get that offense going the way they want, even if he only touches it 6 times. Anytime he touches the ball, he does special things. So, and they've played it very safe with him. So I have a feeling when he's ready to come back, he truly is 100% ready to go. It's just about getting him ramped up on the field. So,
I
yeah, I'll
like it.
take 49ers there. It should be a fun game to watch, though.
Definitely.
The Steelers at the Commanders, another game that is a tough one. The Steelers are +3 right now at the Commanders. Commanders, one of the obviously unexpected stories of this season, playing very well. Jaden Daniels really has that team, going and offensively, defensively, playing above expectations, trading for players at the deadline rather than trading away. Again, something probably no one saw coming at the beginning of the season. And here they are playing a tough Steelers defensive team. Steelers also added some wide receivers. Where do you think this one turns? Certainly a good matchup again.
Oh man, this is definitely a good matchup. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Washington Commanders, Commanders 7-2. They just got Marshawn Lattimore.
Mhm.
This is an intriguing matchup. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Washington Commanders at home. I just home crowd, good team. I think they're on a trajectory right now where as long as they stay healthy, they're playing good ball. Good things can happen. My only concern is when I look at their schedule. Everybody want to talk about the Bills. Hey, the Bills are 7-2, but they ain't played nobody. And once they played somebody, they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. They lost to the Houston Texans. And I'm looking at the Washington Commanders schedule, and it's not too many impressive teams on there. Buccaneers, Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, Browns, the Ravens, they lost. Uh, the Bears and the Giants. So their two losses are against the Ravens and the Buccaneers when they was healthy.
Yes.
Right. So I'm definitely interested to see how they do against another formidable opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going to wait to see that end results. Right now, I'm going with the Commanders.
Yeah, the Commanders, they're playing at home. I think that is the edge here. It is going to be a close game, I think. The Steelers defense certainly capable of doing big things. We'll see about this offense. But the Commanders offense and defense really, again, playing above expectations. I have to go with the momentum all the way. So I'm going Commanders -3. Definitely think they win the game, but it should be a good battle there. Our last 1 p.m. game on Sunday, we've got the Vikings at the Jaguars. Man, the Jags can't catch a break. It doesn't look like Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing in this game. The Vikings, obviously, again, one of the better, hotter teams in the NFL with Sam Darnold's resurgence and the weapons they obviously have there. The line is -7 here, so the Vikings are favored by 7, even though it's at Jacksonville. I think they beat them by more than that. I'm taking the Vikings all the way. I think their offense gets on track. The Jags, again, without Trevor Lawrence, I think Brian Thomas is questionable still. Lots of question marks for that Jags team. This might be the game that gets Doug Peterson fired.
Even if Trevor Lawrence was healthy,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure about the guy anymore. And looking at this game, what kind of pissed me off about this game in particular is Doug Peterson's pressure this week when they said,
Mm.
"Why is Sam Darnold having success?" And he said, "Justin Jefferson."
Yeah.
As to say, you know what, Sam Darnold's not that good. He has a great receiver. It's not him. It's the talent around him. And for you to have the team you have and the struggles you're having, and
Yeah.
to say that I hope Sam Darnold throws for 405 touchdowns against you and gets you the pink slip on Monday morning. I got the Minnesota Vikings in this game.
Yeah, I may or may not have picked up picked up Sam Darnold in one of my fantasy leagues this week for that reason, because I do think he's going to have a big game there. So now we make our way to the 4 o'clock games. The Tennessee Titans at the Chargers. The Chargers are 7.5-point favorites. This is another one where, the Titans clearly signaling we know where our season is at this point, trading away pieces. The Chargers, so inconsistent. It's so hard to pick this team to especially with a 7.5 point spread. But against an inferior Titans team, I think they get it done. I think they run and pass the way they want. They play their kind of quiet offense, I would call it, the Chargers, where they run the ball. There's not a lot of exciting plays, but they get the job done. So I'll take the Chargers minus 7.5 just because I think the Titans are that much inferior.
I have to agree as well. I'm gonna take the Chargers. I think they're the superior team in this matchup. I will say I would not be surprised. It would be just our luck if we look in the stat sheet and see Mike Edwards with an interception. It would be just our luck. Just our luck. New Tennessee Titans safety. He comes over. He produces right away for the Tennessee Titans. But I got the latter in this match. I think the Chargers are the better team.
Hey, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Good luck
Right.
to him in Tennessee. I mean, obviously he went there for the playing time and not the
Right.
attractiveness of going to the playoffs. So now we have another banged up matchup here. 425. The Eagles at the Cowboys. No Dak Prescott. That team is reeling. They're getting some of their defensive players back. I am picking the Eagles all the way here at minus 7.5. I think they trounce their division rival with no Dak. Where are you at with this matchup? Can't hear you.
I said yes. I would tap that a couple times. I said yeah. I'll definitely take the Eagles in that matchup all day, every day, twice on Sunday. I'm banging that 7.5 as well. The Cowboys are a shit show. They don't have the talent. They have Cooper Rush in there. They don't have the run game. They have one receiver.
But they traded for Mingo from
traded
Carolina.
Mingo for a 4th-round pick. I don't know what's going on over there in Dallas, but I got Philly in that game by a lot.
Yeah, quite impressive there for Dallas, the way that their season is spinning. And then it was, Dak's only going to miss 4 games. Now it's, wait, it might be even bigger and he might be out for the year. So we'll see what happens there, but not a fan of the Cowboys this season for sure. The next matchup, relevant to the Bills here, the Jets at the Cardinals. Another 425 matchup here. I'm all over the Cardinals. I think they've been playing well. They're first in their division. They do enough to win games, and the Jets, to me, still underperforming. The biggest crap show in football. I've said it since the offseason. People didn't want to listen to me then. I've been arguing with Eric about them all season. I don't think they get it done against a team that wants to win.
Man, this is a tough game. I think the Jets is going to give them a battle. I think the Jets is going to give them a battle on the road. I'm going to lean towards Arizona. Reason being is Kyler Murray and his legs, to his ability to scramble in the pocket and make things happen. I believe that's going to be a big proponent into their success on Sunday. And they're the home team. So because of those two things, I'm going to go with Arizona in a 3 to 7 point game.
Yeah, the Cardinals are getting 1.5 points. So it's surprising that the Jets are favored in a road game against the Cardinals. 2 more here. Another really good matchup is the Sunday night football game. The Lions at the Texans. Texans, Nico Collins eligible to come off the IR, has not practiced yet this week, and this is including Thursday. So not a good sign there. I was really hoping for my fantasy team's sake that he was coming back, but it looks like, who knows, he could be a last-minute play, but certainly without practicing, can't say that. The Lions, absolutely the hottest team in football. I don't think there's any debate there. I think I have to pick the Lions for that reason alone. They're minus 3.5 points on the spread. I think they could beat the Texans in a 20 to 24 matchup.
Yeah, I think the Lions are the superior team in this matchup. The Houston Texans, they have a good record. I think they're a good team. They don't look as good as they did last year. CJ Stroud don't look as good as he did last year. And Nico Collins going out, along with Stephon Diggs being out, are huge losses for the Houston Texans, especially the way their quarterback is playing right now. So I'm going with the hottest team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions.
And then our last matchup, another AFC relevant matchup here for the Bills. The Dolphins at the Rams. The Rams are currently favored only by a point, basically a pick 'em here. I think the Dolphins season ended against the Bills, so I'm picking the Rams. I just think the Rams, they have good enough offensive play. Their defense has been questionable this year, but I think the Dolphins have lost their heart, and I don't know that they'll show up for this game on Monday night. And the Rams, again, are good enough to punch it down their throats and take advantage of that defense, especially with their wide receivers. So I like the Rams.
And as much as it pains me to say it, I'm probably going to go with the Dolphins this game.
Yeah.
I think the Dolphins are they had a good performance, a good showing last week against the Buffalo Bills, and I believe they're finding their footing. Tua in his third game, I think, will be better. I think the offense will come to play, and I think Miami will get that upset on the road against the Rams. I got Miami.
Excellent. Well, that'll wrap it up for our picks. And man, what a matchup we do have in this week 10. It should be a fun one. By the way, Bengals are up 7-0 now. And they have the ball currently in the first quarter. So again, putting it on that Baltimore team, but this will be a back and forth matchup, I'm sure. And we got a lot of good matchups in week 10. Excited to see the Bills playing at the Colts. Hopefully keep that momentum going. 7-2. Remember all the pundits in the offseason who said the Bills weren't going to win the division and the Bills weren't going to win more than 8 games and all this freaking nonsense that we had to deal with that I exploded at every single person who picked the Jets and the Dolphins over the Bills. Like, are you kidding me? Bills putting it on and showing who they are. And hopefully this is another game to do that for them. And, again, as always, thanks for kicking it with us. Akeem, thank you for jumping in with me at the last minute, giving me your insight. Always good to go back and forth with you. I feel like, again, we always have good chemistry on the show, and I really, really appreciate that. So thanks again.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anthony. And hey, anytime we get a chance to do this and we have the time and our schedules permit, we're definitely going to do it. So appreciate for being on the Hoof podcast.
Yes, don't forget to always, like, follow, subscribe, interact with us. We love it on Twitter, on Facebook, everywhere. Comment on the YouTube, follow us on YouTube. Thank you to Built in Buffalo. Another great episode, week 10 coming at you. Thanks for kicking it with us. Go Bills.
Go Bills.